Let's start with Ghadi. They're based in Kanpur, right? Now, you wouldn't associate Kanpur with huge wealth, but if you do the maths on Ghadi, it's quite mind blowing. So, they sell, I reckon, the best part of $1 billion of washing powder. They are the largest washing powder manufacturer in the country, the largest washing powder brand in the country.
More than anything that levers makes.
More than anything.
I had
that
no
Levers,
idea about
right.
that.
So they dislodged, I think around 20 years ago, they dislodged Unilever. They dislodged Nirma, and they're the largest manufacturer of kapde dhone ka sabun in the country. The actual name of the brand is called Ghadi. The company's name is Rohit Surfactants. If you understand what these companies are doing, if you identify with what they're doing, you can go and set a company up yourself. That's one way of benefiting from the unusual billionaires, from the octopuses. But the other way, if you already got a day job doing something else, invest in these companies, right? The books that I write, the books that I've written with Anupam, the books that I've written with my colleagues, they're available everywhere, for better or for worse. They're pirated extensively. They're also now available in Hindi, in Marathi. So read and then invest. We're giving those ideas away. My observation of successful Indian billionaires has been they are able to shut the noise out and figure out. They're able to shut the noise out and figure out a very different business model. They're able to see the world differently. And as I internalize that point of view, that the answers lie within you rather than outside you, the answers lie within you, I think that's what gave me the motivation and the courage to embark upon that path of coaching with Anna 7 years ago.
Really happy New Year, folks. Welcome to Paisa Vaisa. I'm your host, Anupam Gupta, B50 on Twitter. And of course, again, Happy New Year to all of you. This is the very first episode of 2024. And I'm thrilled to welcome back, this time in person, in studio, face to face, Saurabh Mukherjea, founder and CIO of Marcelus Investment Managers, as our first guest of this new year. Imagine starting the year with a sixer. We're going to talk about the rise of India's super rich families and much more, really, much more, folks. Saurabh, Happy New Year to you and welcome back to Paisa Vaisa.
Well, thank you very much for having me in the studio. I've never done this in the studio before.
Face to face, yeah, this is the first time that you're here.
Very excited, very excited.
For our listeners, this is the third time that Saurabh is here. First time he was here back in August of 2020. My God, that seems like such a far, far away. When we were talking about our book, The Victory Project, that Saurabh and his colleague at Marcellus also did a Hindi episode for Aapka Paisa Vaisa. But this is the first time he's in the studio. So, Saurabh, Happy New Year to you, the entire team at Marcellus. Thank you so much for doing this for our listeners.
My pleasure. Happy New Year to the Paisa Vaisa team. Happy New Year to you, Anupam.
Thanks, Saurabh. Let's start. 5 years to Marcellus. I mean, here we are in 2024, the very first day of the year. And some 15, 18 years since you've been in India. And how's the journey been so far?
It's been a lot of fun to live here. Obviously, there have been ups and downs. It's not been a straight line. We came to India when our son was 6 months old. Our daughter was born here. So their upbringing, their years of going to primary school, secondary school have been in Mumbai. My wife and my career, our lives have folded out in Mumbai. So very happy to make this city our home. Marcellus itself, as you said, is now 5 years and 15 days old. That too has been a roller coaster. We started on 1st December 2018. I was the first investor. We were making steady amounts of money through 2019. Then the first 3 months of COVID, early 2020, that was a real shock to the system. We were a tiny business. We were forced to go into lockdowns, forced to stop taking new clients because in a PMS business, if you're not opening your office, very difficult to take new clients. And then against all odds, against all expectations, through 2020, 2021, we became a firm with over $1 billion of assets under management. And by the time we reopened the office after COVID, we were close to 100 employees. And then post-COVID, the Russia-Ukraine war and the attendant hiking interest rates hit our investment performance through 2022 and the early part of 23. This fiscal, the fiscal which ends in March 24, has been good for us. The flagship product is up, consistent compounders is up some 25-26%. We launched a global compounders product focusing on Europe and America. That's up some 26-27% in rupee terms as well. So we're looking forward to 2024. Hopefully after a tough 22 and a good 23, hopefully 24 will bring positive news for Marcellus and its clients.
Yeah, I'm sure that will happen. Okay, folks, the theme of this episode is going to be on one of the blog posts that Saurabh's firm writes. It's the post is called "The Octopus Ascends." I'm going to give you a small background. Marcellus does some of the most interesting and fascinating research, all of which, believe me, all of which is completely and totally free and accessible to pretty much everyone. You don't have to be an investor in their products. You just have to sign in on their newsletter, and it's open to everybody. I'm a subscriber right since they started because I know the quality of work that Saurabh does, and I also know the fact that for a lot of other PMSs, their newsletters, their thinking is not easily available in the public domain. So if you're not already subscribed to the newsletter, and if you're looking for some very interesting research on India, the website is marcellus.in. Just sign up there, and you'll be able to get their weekly news, their monthly newsletters, portfolio updates, and of course posts like the one that we're going to talk about right now. So sort of, it was September 2023, almost 3 months ago, when on your blog you wrote this post called "The Octopus Ascends." The central point being that there are about 250,000, let's say about 200,000 super rich families which have ascended. I mean, that's why the title Octopus Ascends. So let's go into that.
So look, I think there was two things which led us to write this. So post-COVID, through 2022, as we started traveling across the country, and we spent a lot of time deliberately in tier 3, tier 4 towns and cities, what we were noticing was, our client numbers were burgeoning in these cities. Tier 2, 3, 4 became increasingly majority of our business. And that was against all our own expectations, right? Remember, portfolio management services minimum ticket as per SEBI rules is 50 lakhs. And we were surprised, therefore, to see farmers from Nashik becoming clients in large numbers with amounts of money that we had never expected them to have. So that was the first sign to us that there's something very different happening, a new wealth creation dynamic that we hadn't seen before happen. Then when the FY23 income tax returns, so for the year ending March 23, the government published the data behind the income tax returns somewhere in July, August this year. July, August 2023, the government published the IT returns data. And I have to, in simple words, I was just shell-shocked when I saw that data, because what that showed was a number of individuals filing returns of rupees 1 crore and upwards. That number had jumped by 50% over the preceding 4 years to 2.7 lakhs. So 2.7 lakh Indians filed IT returns of 1 crore and upwards, right? 50% jump on, say, FY19. And remember, in the intervening periods, we had basically lost 2 years to COVID. In spite of that, 50% jump in 1 CR and above. And 1 CR and above, as you and I know, even in the context of financial markets in Bombay, is pretty serious income, right? And in contrast, the number of individuals filing IT returns of 5 lakhs or less, flat across the last 4 years. So that's when we suddenly started joining the dots that something very big is happening here. We are seeing inflows into Marcellus's PMS from small town India, and the IT returns are showing almost a vertical curve in the creation of super rich individuals. And that's when as we started researching the phenomenon, we realized that what's happening is concentration of wealth at all levels, at the town level, at the state level, at the national level. Wealth is concentrating increasingly in the hands of roughly 250,000 families, let's call them, and therefore roughly 1 million individuals. So remember, there are roughly 500 million families. Out of that 500 million, around 250,000 are absolutely killing it when it comes to creating colossal wealth.
Wow. And octopus comes from the fact that they're everywhere.
So no, octopus comes partly from the fact that they're everywhere. I think the main reason we use the term octopus is the sources of income and wealth for these families are manifold, right? So much like an octopus sucks in nutrition from through many sources, these families suck in wealth and money through many sources. So just to sort of give a simple example, if
you have given two, actually. I just wanted to get into that. You said the Ghadi and Dainik Bhaskar. So Ghadi, for the guys who don't know, is a very famous detergent in the smaller markets. Probably not small anymore, by the way.
Yeah.
And Dainik Bhaskar, I believe, is into the
media space. Well, let's just then use those, right? Yeah. So first of all, let's start with Ghadi. They're based in Kanpur, right? Now, you wouldn't associate Kanpur with huge wealth, but if you do the maths on Ghadi, it's quite mind-blowing. So they sell, I reckon, the best part of $1 billion of washing powder. They are the largest washing powder manufacturer in the country, the largest washing powder brand in the country.
More than anything that Levers makes.
More than anything.
I had no idea about that.
So they dislodged, I think around 20 years ago, they dislodged Unilever. They dislodged Nirma, and they're the largest manufacturer of kapde dhone ka sabun in the country. The actual name of the brand is called Ghadi. The company's name is Rohit Surfactants. Now, if they were listed, I reckon they would make profits of somewhere between $50 to $100 million. And if you put a standard FMCG PE multiple on that, you can see that the owners of Ghadi are worth several $1 billion. So these are dollar billionaires based out of Kanpur, right? By the way, very modest offices, very modest.
So you visited them?
I visited them 6, 7 years ago. Very modest offices, but incredibly powerful company across the Hindi-speaking belt. The preeminent washing powder brand. Yeah. Now, beyond just doing washing powder, they've also created a very successful dairy business. They've created a very successful footwear business, renewable energy business. They have 5 wind power plants with installed capacity of 50 megawatts. And as you'd expect, if you're a power in the land, if you're a powerful family from Kanpur, they're also very successful in real estate, right? Oh. And this is, by the way, this is the stuff that's disclosed on the website. I'm sure, given the business acumen of these promoters, there's other things they're doing successfully. So here this is a family which less than 30 years ago came to preeminence, and over the last 30 years, they've created several $1 billion of wealth across multiple businesses. Dainik Bhaskar is similar. The good thing about Dainik Bhaskar from your and my perspective is listed. So we can actually get a great deal of transparency. So the listed entity's worth, a market cap would be around $600 million, 4,000, 5,000 crores. The Agarwal family, this is a Bhopal-based family. The Agarwal family owns around 70 to 73% of that 4,000 crores. So they themselves, just on the listed entity, they'll be worth 3,000 crores. This is India's largest Hindi newspaper. In fact, I think if you take language out of the equation, this is India's largest newspaper, the Dainik Bhaskar, published out of Bhopal. Was started, I think, in the late 50s. The Agarwal family started Dainik Bhaskar. And much like the Rohit Surfactants family, they too have created a power business, a vertical in the power sector. They've created a real estate vertical. And again, my reckoning is this is what we are being told, but I'm sure there are other successful businesses from this family. Even in, say, small towns, Satara, Sangli in Maharashtra, Boisar in close to the Maharashtra-Gujarat border, all these places that I visit, I'll see, 3 to 4 octopus families who basically dominate the local economy, and they're generating wealth and income from many different sources, hence the name octopus.
Yeah. So before I go into the implications, do you have a thesis as to why this has happened? Because you told me 2 things. One is that the 1 crore plus is up 50%, and the 5 lakhs till 5 lakhs is absolutely flat. So,
So what I think has happened, right, and obviously there can be many different interpretations of the data. The data is a given. How you interpret the data is up to you. Our reading is, as the country has got joined up, as the Indian economy has got integrated in the last 20 years, right? Road networks have tripled in the last 20 years. Airline networks have pentupled. Broadband connectivity up 50, 60x. GST has integrated the indirect tax system. As you've joined the country up, the local chotu business basically, I think, is on a hammering to nothing, right? And we see this very visibly in small town India. You'll have a D-Mart come in, and the local kirana store naturally faces challenges. You'll have a increasingly courtesy Zudio's breakneck growth, very successful business model that Zudio and Noel Tata and Venkataslu has put together. When Zudio enters a town, the local chota apparel ka dukan gets into challenges. When a Tanishq sets up a 3-story store, the local jeweler, right? So you're seeing this effect where regional giants or national giants are going in and crunching the local players and consolidating their market share, right? So this is the national level phenomenon. Okay. So the analogy to use is, think of a village economy. A sheltered village economy will have lots of chota players. Then when you open up the village economy to national level competition, in the face of competitive intensity, the inefficient players will die and regional giants will be born, perhaps national giants will be born. The octopus is basically the regional giant, right? He's the guy or she's the lady who's figured out how to operate in a free market economy through a combination of business acumen and perhaps a degree of connectivity with the local government apparatus. So at a simple level, this is a result of the free market. You're opening up the country, you're opening up the economy, making it a large competitive economy. It's a survival of the fittest, and the fittest are the octopuses. America went through a very similar phase, Anupam, between 1880 to 1930, right? They in that 50 years, railroads, telegraph, roads joined up America, and all the American brands that we know, right? Kellogg's and Heinz and Sears and Wrigley's and Coca-Cola and General Motors, they were all created in those 50 years. We are going through a similar phase in our development, and these roughly 250,000 families, they are the people who basically rule our economy. They rule the wealth creation stakes in India.
And you reckon this trend is here to stay? I mean, you don't think this is...
As long as we keep, as long as this India stays a free market, becomes a more capitalistic economy, I think this trend will not only stay, I think it will accelerate further. These 250,000 families will pull away more wealth and muscle.
Very interesting. So before we go into the break, Saurabh, what I wanted in the same post, and this has again been one of the themes that you've written about a lot, the polarization of corporate profits. Just talk about that for a while.
So as I was saying, this is the octopus phenomenon is the regional manifestation of the national the national phenomenon. So we just step back and I'll give you the data, and then we'll discuss why it's happening. So I migrated to India in 2008. That year, the 20 largest corporates generated around 25% of India's profits, right? A quarter of India's profits came from the 20 mightiest companies, right? Before COVID, this 25% had become 60%. Just before COVID, the 20 largest companies were making 60% of the nation's profits. After COVID, it's become 70%, right? 20 mega companies, listed companies, make 70% of the nation's profits. So, for example, HDFC Bank alone, after the merger with HDFC Limited, HDFC Bank alone will make something like 11-12% of whole of India's profits, right? So that's the data. The data is very clear that you are seeing polarization of profits. For the finance geeks like you and me, free cash flow is also polarizing, right? Now, why is it happening? Is the $4 trillion question, that being the market cap of our stock market or the size of the economy. Why is this happening? And again, I think it's happening because we are becoming a free market economy, or we've become a free market economy. The integration of the country creates a massive economic canvas, and on that canvas, to paint successfully, you have to be an extremely well-run, well-managed company using modern technology, using business processes, using bright people from India's university education system to build scale, build competitive advantages. And this is simply not in the grasp of chota businesses to keep up with these national giants. In parallel, the crackdown on black money, the crackdown on tax evasion pulverizes the tax evading SME, right? So for many of the tax evading SMEs, their profit margin basically was tax evasion, and GST has taken away that benefit. So a business which operates without paying any tax effectively makes a 20% profit margin, and a business which operates with full tax, like for like, will make 0% profit margin. So these phenomena have happened together: the linking up of the country, the rise of the national economy, and in parallel the crackdown on tax evaders, and the result is a polarized profitability curve in our country.
Yeah. So, folks, if you want to know more about this, of course, check out the blog that Saurabh runs at Marcellus. Notes in the episode description will be given, so you can pick up the link from there. So, from polarization, there's another theme which I know is something that you like, because you've written a book on it back in 2016 called The Unusual Billionaires, Great Companies. They managed to capture a very large piece of this pie. So, very simple question, and I think you've also answered it in the book back then, but for a recap for our listeners, what makes companies great in India?
So I think one simple way to think about it is companies that make a lot of money in India, the public doesn't get to know much about them. So, in fact, we've already discussed Rohit Surfactants, right? The largest washing powder brand in the country. And even people who use Ghadi detergent, I don't think have ever heard of Rohit Surfactants. But that, I think, is generally true. The most powerful money machines in India operate beneath the radar. They don't seek publicity. And one of the reasons I've realized over time they don't seek publicity is because their business is so effective in making vast sums of money by using technology, by building competitive advantage, that they would rather stay under the radar. And conversely, businesses which actually can't make a lot of money tend to beat the drum a lot, attract a lot of attention. But when you look at their annual report, you realize they're actually not very successful as a business. So let's take an example, right? We're working on Unusual Billionaires 2. And in Unusual Billionaires 2, we're explaining how Bajaj Finance works, right? So Bajaj Finance is effectively a tech company pretending to be an NBFC, right? Just like Asian Paints is effectively a tech company pretending to be a paints company. Bajaj Finance is one of the largest employers of computer scientists and electrical engineers from the IIT and REC ecosystem.
Wow.
They have, we know for sure that they have the largest sales force. They are the largest sales force client in Asia, perhaps in the world.
Software.
Salesforce, the CRM software.
My God.
And basis what we have understood, we reckon on that the largest Salesforce server is made available to Bajaj Finance. And on that server, we reckon the best part of 200 million Indians is data is stored. More data on those 200 million Indians is on that server than I think in any other source. Analyzing that data, mining that data gives Bajaj Finance deep and proprietary insights into, say, Anupam Gupta's finances or Saurabh Mukherjea's finances. Based on those proprietary insights, they're able to lend money to Saurabh when he wants to buy, say, a washing machine at the local Chroma in the suburb of Bombay he lives. And if you go to the local Chroma where I live in the suburb of Bombay, they'll tell you, the manager will tell you that 90% of the machines in that Chroma are financed by Bajaj Finance. 90, right? This is a prosperous suburb of Bombay. In fact, I went to the lending desk. The other lenders were also there. And I asked all of them, they said, who does most of the financing? And they all pointed the finger at the Bajaj Finance guy. He said, yes, sara dhanda le jata hai.
And this is in today's day.
This
You're
is
not talking about something like 10 years ago.
This is right here, right now. My wife and I bought the washing machine 2 weeks ago. We didn't use the financing, but I was so curious. I asked them. So technology, Salesforce server, IIT, REC, bright computer scientists, massive data lakes, right? Every shred of data on you and me that's imaginable being analyzed in that lake, and that data being mined at the coal face at the local consumer durables store near your and my house, and 90% of consumer durable financing, and then the leveraging of that to build, say, a housing finance business to sell insurance products to you and me. And you have a company which has compounded 1500x in 15 years.
1,500 times.
1,500 times in 15 years. And it ain't going to stop anytime soon because as we know in the knowledge economy, data success breeds more data, more insights, and thus the flywheel that Rajiv Jain and team have built in Pune will keep on firing, I suspect, for many years to come. Disclaimer here, Marcellus owns Bajaj Finance. I'm invested. My parents are invested. Our 9,000 clients are invested.
Yeah, when you talk about skin in the game, I think you know what
you're talking about. We're all in.
I want to just take one step back and look at the drivers here, because the company is a result of an entrepreneur. The financials are a result of that entrepreneur's strategies or whatever. What makes entrepreneurs great? In the sense that, and you're one yourself now. I mean, you've been an entrepreneur now for the best part of 5 years, and going forward, when you profile most of these people back in 2016 for the Unusual Billionaires, you met them, and after that also you've been meeting a lot of entrepreneurs. What makes entrepreneurs great in India?
I think a big part of it is the ability to shut out the noise around you. Think for yourself. Think for yourself about what's happening in the country. Usually, if you think for yourself, you'll think originally. Think for yourself, think originally. Think differently about what's happening in the country. And then build a business around your insights, your perspective on the country. Once you've built the business, stay the course, right? 20 different people will tell you 19 different things about why you're wrong. It's up to you to have the clarity of thought to figure out why you are right. It's up to you to have the strength of character to stay the course. So original thinkers with strength of character, with clarity of thought, obviously naturally hardworking people. You're not going to get anywhere in India without working 60, 70 hours a week if you want to be an entrepreneur. Those are the people that I see building colossal businesses. So the typical market cap of the companies I wrote about in the Unusual Billionaires, I wrote this book in 2015. It was published in 2016. At that time, the market cap of these companies, the typical company's market cap was around 5 billion. Today, it is the same companies who are in that book. Today, the typical market cap is pushing 35, 40 billion.
Huh.
So in the 7 years since I published the book, these companies have added on average $30 billion each. And again, this is the result of original thought combined with clarity of thought, steadiness of purpose, and lots of hard work.
And of course, if you want to know more, there is a Victory Project that
Yep.
Saurabh has written that, I was quite lucky to be part of. And
It was a lot of fun to write.
I remember, when we were doing meetings for that book and we had met some great people at that point of time, all of these people gave us a time of the day. None of them had a CNBC going on. None of them had their mobile ring. They were just with us for 2 hours. I mean, you think that's even possible for people in this day and age to just shut out everything and just speak to you like you're the only guy there, And
So you're right. For 99% of people, it's not possible, and hence, they struggle. But the unusual billionaires are able to do that. They're able to shut out the noise, concentrate, think, brainstorm ideas, read. Big part of Victory Project, we describe in the Victory Project, Anupam, you and me, that reading is a massive skill. So read to lead, I think, should become a motto for many people. And it's that 1% really. Perhaps it's 0.5% of the country, 1 out of 200 people who have this ability to read, think, concentrate, think originally, and then apply the insights that they have, apply them in the real world, and keep at it for many years. I think they end up becoming the octopuses.
Yeah. Boy, I think I could go on that on a separate note, but we're going to wind down the episode now with the last few questions. So how can our listeners benefit from these ideas? One is obviously pick out these themes on themselves or read your stuff or whatever it is. So in your view, great companies, super rich families, great brands, cash flow generating companies, how can our listeners benefit from all these themes?
I mean, look. The simple way to go to benefit would be invest, right? If you understand what these companies are doing, if you identify with what they're doing, you can go and set a company up yourself. That's one way of benefiting from the unusual billionaires, from the octopuses. But the other way, if you already got a day job doing something else, invest in these companies, right? The books that I write, the books that I've written with Anupam, the books that I've written with my colleagues, they're available everywhere, for better or for worse. They're pirated extensively. They're also now available in Hindi, in Marathi. So read and then invest. We're giving those ideas away. Even on our website, Anupam very kindly referenced Marcellus.in. Even on our website, we are giving away the entire names of the portfolios that we invest in. All the names of the stocks are there. Obviously, before you invest, do your work. Don't just blindly listen to what I'm saying or what anybody else is saying. Do your work. Data is easily available. There are fabulous resources online available free of charge. Do the work, invest in, and enrich yourself as India grows, as the Indian economy booms. If you really want to benefit from that economic growth, then you'll have to build a portfolio for yourself, which locks your fate and your fortune into the fortunes of this vast and rapidly growing economy.
Yeah. So Saurabh, we are done with the technical part and the octopus part and all that part of the show. I want to get to the fun part now.
Right.
You're a best-selling author. Okay, now let me just recap from whatever I recall of your books. Okay, you started with Gurus of Chaos, which was like this very simple project where you said, I'm going to interview 5 or 6 fund managers, and I think that itself had at that, what was that, 2012?
We published that in 2013, I think.
The first book?
Yeah, the book was published in 2013. Yeah, I wrote it in 2012.
From there, you jumped. You did a quantum leap with The Unusual Billionaires, because if I recall correctly, and I know because I was very lucky to be part of that book. Till then, literally nobody in India had critically looked at corporate performance at a summary basis. Now in the US, it's very common, and HBR would do this, or Jim Collins would have a good to great, or William Thorndike would have the
outsiders.
It's very corporate performance there is well tracked and well in India, for whatever reason, which actually confounds me, because India's got some of the most richest corporate history in Asia, at least, if not the world, but nobody's written. That was the first time that somebody picked up, did a framework and said, okay, you need to do 10%, right?
Revenue growth, 10% revenue growth.
10% rev growth and 15% ROC.
ROC, yeah.
And guess what? You could come up with all of 8 companies. So 8 or 7, I don't remember. Out of 4,000 listed companies.
Yeah.
Okay, and obviously that was a breakthrough book. People who've not read it, I think it's gone into the second edition and stuff like that.
Yeah.
And you don't find business books going into the second edition. From there, you went into coffee can investing, which was a completely, which made it more personal for our readers there. Saying that, okay, now that you've written about the books, now how can you benefit? Okay. Then again, the
and
two
Coffee
of us
Can
took
Investing,
this.
to my astonishment, has now been published in Hindi and Marathi.
Yeah, I mean, I could do like an entire year's full of episodes just based on that book, okay? Then suddenly you woke up one fine day and the two of us, over our coffees, decided let's do Victory Project. And that again became a bestseller.
Yeah, again, that was a book not about money.
Yeah, not about money.
Improving yourself.
But the people we met and the conversations we had, I think that's something that's going to be there. They're there in my memory, I know, because I'm a much better person for the kind of stuff. I mean, Sanjeev Bikhchandani, Manish Agarwal and all of them. And again, that book was a bestseller. Then you said, let's do Diamonds in the Dust. Okay, which again, whoever I've met, have picked that up and said that this is like, it's really something very different.
Right.
Okay.
It's probably a slightly more investing oriented book than a personal finance book.
Yeah.
But you're right. Even that one became a bestseller through 2021 actually.
Yeah. And then here's all of us, me included, thinking that, okay, you're going to write again about, companies and cash flows and, great companies or investing and this. And Unfiltered comes out. You and Anna write this searing book. I can't think of any other word.
Yeah.
Because there's stuff in there that you have brought out in the open that I honestly, A, I did not know. And B, for you to put it all out there would have taken courage. And that also became a bestseller. I'm pretty sure about that. If Manish is listening in, I'm sure that he would.
Yeah, I think that Unfiltered is not yet a bestseller. So Unfiltered is a more personal book. It's my journey about coming to terms with India, figuring out a way of living in India that's sustainable for myself and for my family, and Anna as the coach, the psychologist who coached me through the last 7-8 years, giving her perspective as to how she helped me find my way through India. Yeah. It's a very personal book. Hopefully people will read it. But if you ask me for all these books, that was the one that was the most fun to write.
Yeah. I mean, and I think that I can tell you this, that if I had to take a bet right now, I think the book is ahead of its times.
Yeah.
If it's not a bestseller, then that's for a reason, because people, and I'm sure that you would agree with this, that coaching and emotional help is still not taken seriously in this country, at least by top performing CEOs or even CEOs in general, for them to accept that if I change my attitude, I can unlock a whole, a totally different level of performance, is still not something that's I would say understood or accepted well. I think 5 years later, or maybe 3 years later, if not the end of this year itself, this will become the trend. I don't know if
it's an interesting point you make. I think I agree with you that the concept of corporate the concept of CEO coaching is still not the norm in India. Part of it, I think, is we're still a society very focused on दूसरे लोग क्या कर रहे हैं, what is the latest trend in the country that I need to analyze and so on. As I said, my observation of successful Indian billionaires has been they are able to shut the noise out and figure out. They're able to shut the noise out and figure out a very different business model. They're able to see the world differently. And as I internalize that point of view, that the answers lie within you rather than outside you, the answers lie within you, I think that's what gave me the motivation and the courage to embark upon that path of coaching with Anna 7 years ago. Perhaps as more business leaders in India come around to that point of view, that the answers lie within.
Yeah, of course.
Perhaps coaching then becomes a part of that. I mean, I look at it very simply. If Novak Djokovic needs a coach, and if Rohit Sharma needs a coach, then sure as hell Saurabh Mukherjea needs a coach.
Who are we? Yeah. And I can tell you for sure that 3 years, 5 years, 1 year later, people are going to go back and say, I wish I'd read this book before. If they're not reading it, then I hope that they read it.
Fingers crossed. I think that's also available now in Kindle and Audible and so on. Yeah. So every format, all our books, thankfully, are now available in Kindle and Audible. So if you want to just listen to it while driving to work, then that's also very possible.
Yeah. What lies ahead? That's what I was coming to. You've spoken about all your books so far. You spoke about Unusual Billionaires Part 2. What else are you up to on the content side?
So the country is changing, right? As you discussed, the octopus is one of the ways the country is changing. For example, another aspect of change that's fascinating me, women are pulling ahead of men in every strata of society. In villages, in North India, in South India, in cities, women have more money in their bank accounts than men. So I think India's master narrative has changed in the last 20 years. And my colleague Nandita, who co-wrote the blog with me, she and I might do a book on how has the country changed in the last 20 years, what have been the drivers of change. So if we can find time to write that book, that'll be a lot of fun. And in parallel, I'm beginning a podcast. Beginning a podcast. My first.
Welcome.
Thank you.
Welcome to the world of
I'm
podcasts.
going to turn to you for tips and help. It's a very different medium. So it's called Coffee and Investing with Saurabh. So hopefully you'll join me in next year and show me the ropes there. So I'm going to try my hand at podcasting. The podcasting will largely be about investing. How does one invest in India and make money in this booming economy? So I think that's probably enough extracurricular activities. Unusual Billionaires 2, a book on the economy, and then podcasting alongside that. Marcellus will keep me busy, I'm sure.
Exciting new year ahead, and the
Sounds like that.
markets and investing are just one small piece of the bigger pie. And when you spoke about women, I just want to give a small shout out to our common friend, Anirudh Datta, who wrote Half a Billion
Incredible,
Rising.
incredible.
Yeah, how about that? Again,
he absolutely nailed it. I mean, if you read Anirudh's book, he wrote that book in 2014. 2014, Anirudh's book was published.
10 years ago.
10 years ago,
Imagine.
he absolutely nailed it. Indian women have done everything he said in that book, Half a Billion Rising, and they are just blasting ahead. It is incredible to watch how all the opportunities in modern India are being sucked away by women.
Yeah, as it should also. And I think, folks, if you just check out the book, it's there everywhere. And I don't know if Datta Babu, as we call him, is listening to this show, but if he is, then the shout out to him. Okay, so finally, our standard question, and I know that it's something that you do very regularly. What's on your bookshelf? What are you reading? Do you have any recommendations for our listeners?
So I read Power and Progress by Simon Johnson and Darren Acemoglu recently. So it's a book on how technology over the last 1,000 years has created prosperity, but not for everybody, right? So a lot of people mistakenly think technology matlab sab paisa banayenge. That's not how it works. Technology enriches select sections of society, and how technology and whether technology enriches the masses depends on a very specific set of conditions. I was fascinated by that book. I think it's very relevant to India's Power and Progress by Simon Johnson and Darren Acemoglu. I'd read Vinay Sitapati's Half Lion, the book on P.V. Narasimha Rao, our erstwhile PM, the PM who brought in the reforms of 91. I'd read that. I thought it was a tremendous book by Vinay Sitapati. Lots of research and a very original perspective on Narasimha Rao. Recently, I read Jugalbandi, the book where he describes the creation of the BJP. He describes how Lal Krishna Advani ji and Atal Bihari Vajpayee ji collaborated, although very different personas with different points of view, collaborated to build the BJP. So I'm looking forward to see if I can, if Vinay Sitapati writes more, if whatever he writes, I think I'll read, because I think he's a fabulously original thinker on India. And then currently I'm reading a book by Rajmohan Gandhi on South India, how South India has evolved over the last 400 years. South India today accounts for a quarter of the country's population, half of the GDP, and 3/4 of the GDP growth.
Wow.
So South India is India's economic engine by a country mile, and how this part of India became what it has become, which is one of the most rapidly growing parts of the world. So, for example, Telangana's economy has doubled in the last 6 years, right? That's East Asia plus in terms of growth, right? So what's happened here, very curious. If anybody else knows of other good books on South India, please point me towards them. Currently reading Rajmohan Gandhi's book on South India.
Amazing. You have a list of authors? Like anything that they would write, you would just read them blindly?
So I'd put Cal Newport on that list.
Course, yeah.
I think Deep Work is one of the books of the last 10 years. Amongst Indians, as I said, Vinay Sitapati. I've been a long-standing Ram Guha fan. Remain a Ram Guha fan. So I think he's a pretty prolific writer. He'll hopefully keep publishing stuff. Gurucharan Das ji, one of my gurus.
We've had the pleasure to meet him also.
Yeah, so we had pleasure, and he wrote the foreword of the Victory Project for you and me. He's published his memoirs. So I bought them.
Oh my!
He's published his memoirs.
Imagine him still writing at this.
Yeah, so I think
furious. I mean, he just
I haven't read it. Other colleagues in Marcellus have read the book and they rave about it. So I'm planning to read Gurucharan Das-ji's memoirs over the Christmas break.
Amazing. Think of a book podcast. Yeah, seriously, Saurabh, or at least add in that in your upcoming podcast. Do you ever read fiction? Because I had this conversation with a lot of people who say that, we've had enough of non-fiction, but
Yeah.
people should read fiction. I don't know
I
what's your
try. I
thoughts.
try. I used to be a big fiction reader in my teens, but somehow once I began work, I struggled to concentrate on fiction. I enjoy reading, say, Amitabh Ghosh from time to time. I read him, but generally my concentration wavers. If I read fiction, you give me a book on power and progress on economics going back 1,000 years, and I'm completely locked into it.
Oh boy. So there's a. Why? I'm going to just, wrap up this last part for you folks. Saurabh is working on a new book. He's working on Unusual Billions Part 2. He's got a brand new podcast which should hopefully start in the next coming days because this episode plays out on 1st of Jan. He's already given you his favorite list of books. And I don't know what all you're up to, Saurabh, but Happy New Year to you, the team at Marcellus, and I wish you all the very best for yet another year of success. And folks, that is a wrap on this episode of Paisa Vaisa. My guest, Saurabh Mukherjea, founder and CIO of Marcelus Investment Managers. Saurabh, as always, great to have you in the studio. First time that you're out here. I wish that you keep coming again. Thank you so much for doing this for our listeners.
My pleasure. Thank you very much. And again, Happy New Year to Paisa Vaisa and all its listeners.
Thanks, Saurabh.
IVM.